A global consumer goods company spent a year and a half building what they proudly called the most advanced analytics platform in their industry. I mean, it was a masterpiece on paper. Dozens of dashboards. Live feeds from every channel you can think of. Predictive models trained on years of sales data. And then, about 6 months after launch, their CEO asked a question so simple it cut through all the hype. Which decisions did we actually make better because of this? Which calls did we change, which bets did we place differently, and what results improved because we had this system? And the room went quiet. Not because the data was wrong. Not because the dashboards didn't work. They did. The problem was nobody could point to a single strategic decision that had changed. Nobody could tie an outcome back to a prediction and say, yes, this helped us win. They had data. They had reporting. What they didn't have was a decision layer. Today, we're unpacking what a decision layer is, why it's the difference between analytics theater and real performance, and how the organizations pulling ahead are closing the loop from insight to action to measured outcome. I'm Nakel Nakima, and this is the Intelligence Edge. Alright, joining me today is a 4-person panel, and I'm really excited because we're coming at this from different regions and different disciplines, but all centered around the same question: how do you build intelligence that actually changes what an organization does? With us is Dr. Lian Zhou, an AI transformation leader across Asia-Pacific, working in everything from finance hubs like Singapore to major manufacturing environments in Japan and South Korea.
Thanks, Nakel. I love this topic because it's the part people skip. They build the intelligence and then wonder why nothing changes.
Also with us, Maria Alvarez, a data governance leader across Latin America, designing governance frameworks that deal with regulation, cross-border complexity, and the reality that organizations want speed and control at the same time.
Thank you. And yes, speed and control, that's exactly the tension. People act like governance is paperwork, but it's supposed to be an operating system for trust.
From Berlin, Jonas Richter, who specializes in data ethics and compliance across Europe, helping enterprises innovate while staying defensible under GDPR, and now the expanding AI regulatory environment.
Happy to be here, and I'll say upfront, if you can't explain and audit your decisions, you don't actually have a system. You have a liability.
And finally, Kwame Mensah, an intelligence systems architect building decision infrastructure across Africa, from fintech in Lagos to agricultural systems in East Africa. Kwame, welcome.
Thanks, Nakel. I'm excited because in a lot of the environments I work in, you can't afford fancy dashboards that don't lead to action. You either design for real outcomes or you lose.
So let's set the foundation. I'll ask each of you the same framing question, and yeah, keep it tight so we can go deep after. When you hear decision layer, what does it mean in your world? Lian, start us off.
In my context, the decision layer is the bridge between intelligence and action, but at scale. A lot of organizations have AI models and analytics, but the output lives in dashboards that get glanced at once a week. The decision layer puts those insights inside the workflow: who acts, when they act, what happens if they don't act, and how accountability works. It turns knowing into doing.
Maria, how do you define it through governance?
For me, it's the moment when data governance finally earns its keep. You can have policies and lineage maps and documentation that look beautiful, but if none of that touches decisions and outcomes, it becomes bureaucracy. The decision layer is where trusted data becomes decision-grade, traceable, and measurable in impact.
Jonas, ethics and compliance lens.
I see it as the accountability surface. It's where you can answer who made the call, based on what evidence, with what expectations, and could we defend it later. In Europe especially, the ability to audit and explain decisions is not optional anymore. The decision layer is where defensibility is built.
Kwame.
I think of it as the value extraction point. You can move fast, you can be cloud native, you can be mobile first, but if you're just reacting and changing direction constantly, speed doesn't matter. The decision layer turns velocity into vector. It gives direction, and it makes outcomes measurable.
Different angles, same core message, it's where intelligence becomes accountable action. Now let's talk about why so many organizations never get there. Because here's what's weird, right? Everybody agrees with the idea. Use data, make better decisions, measure performance. And yet in practice, most organizations have a graveyard of dashboards and insight initiatives that never changed outcomes. Lien, you've watched transformation efforts across APAC. Where does the loop usually break?
It's remarkably consistent. 1. Structure. Many large enterprises, especially traditional conglomerates, have strategy, operations, and technology separated into strong silos. Each silo has its own goals, leaders, incentives. The decision layer crosses those boundaries, and that's hard when the organization is optimized to protect boundaries. 2. Culture. In some environments, hierarchy controls how information moves. Insights generated by analysts or working teams don't reach the people who decide, or by the time they do, the urgency is gone. And there's also a reluctance to make decisions measurable, because measurement creates exposure. If you make outcomes visible, sometimes you also make mistakes visible. 3. Consensus. Many companies optimize for agreement over speed. So they discuss, align, realign, and by the time they decide, the market has moved. The decision layer needs clearer domains of authority and accountability so decisions can happen while they still matter.
That last part hits. Consensus feels safe, but it can be expensive. Maria, let me ask you something a little provocative. Does governance sometimes make this worse?
Yes, if it's built the wrong way. There's a real tension here. Governance needs controls, approvals, definitions, lineage, documentation. But if governance adds weeks to every step, people will just work around it. They'll make decisions on instinct, and if there's a problem, they'll try to document after the fact. The fix isn't less governance. It's governance designed for decision velocity. Pre-approved data sets for certain decisions. Pre-validated models. Clear ownership so you're not waiting for 3 different committees. Governance should make good decisions faster, not make fast decisions risky. And I'll add something from Latin America. A lot of organizations are building governance for the first time, so they have this opportunity. If you design governance with the decision layer in mind from day one, you avoid turning it into an isolated compliance function.
So governance isn't the enemy. Bad governance is. Jonas, when you layer in ethics and regulation, does it become even harder to close the loop?
It becomes more complex, but it's necessary complexity. GDPR and related regulations basically force a question that many organizations try to avoid. Can you explain what you did to a real person who was affected by it? That's a feature, not a bug. It pushes you toward a proper decision layer. The failure mode I see is fear turning into paralysis. Companies say things like, we can't measure outcomes because that means collecting more personal data, or we can't automate that because then we need impact assessments and documentation. They're not wrong to worry, but it's solvable if you treat compliance as a design constraint. The winning mindset is, how do we measure outcomes in a privacy-preserving way? How do we create audit trails that don't expose unnecessary data? Not, should we measure outcomes at all? Because if you don't, you're just guessing.
Kwame, you build in environments with different constraints, connectivity, infrastructure gaps, sometimes emerging regulatory frameworks. How does that shape decision systems?
It forces you to be honest. If your user is on a phone with intermittent network, you can't build an experience that assumes they'll browse 5 dashboards, then come back later and decide. You design for decision completion. The insight shows up with an action attached. Accept it, reject it, adjust it, and move. And outcome measurement often becomes easier because transactions are born digital. You can track what happened by default. I've seen fintech platforms with better decision-to-outcome traceability than much older institutions in richer markets. Not because they have more money. Because they designed like every step had to be efficient.
Say that again, abundant resources can make you lazy. Kwame, give us a concrete example where constraint produced a better decision layer.
Agricultural lending in East Africa. The traditional process was slow. A loan officer visits a farm, collects info, submits paperwork, waits for a credit committee, and maybe weeks later money is disbursed. And then, outcome tracking is almost non-existent. Did yields improve? Did repayment improve? It's disconnected. In a newer model, you combine satellite imagery, mobile phone behavior signals, and historical weather patterns to generate a recommendation that goes directly to the loan officer's phone. The officer can approve or adjust on the spot. Funds are disbursed instantly with mobile money. And here's the key, because it's digital end-to-end, you can track repayment, but also begin tracking downstream outcomes. Are yields improving for certain loan types? Are default rates changing with certain risk signals? That's a decision layer built under constraint, and it produces learning many sophisticated institutions struggle to get.
So we've diagnosed the gap. Now let's talk about the fix. I want to introduce a concept that sits at the center of this episode: outcome intelligence. Traditional business intelligence is great at telling you what happened. Predictive analytics tries to tell you what could happen. Prescriptive analytics suggests what you should do. But none of that, by default, answers the question that actually matters: did the decision work? Outcome intelligence is the discipline of measuring the real-world results of decisions and feeding that learning back into the system. Not once a year. Not as a post-mortem. As a normal part of the operating rhythm. Kwame, you've built this kind of loop into architecture. How does it work, practically?
A simple framing is to treat decisions as objects, not events. Old approach: a model recommends an inventory allocation, a person approves it, inventory moves, and we move on. The recommendation disappears into history. New approach: the allocation becomes a decision object in the data model. It carries metadata. What inputs did it use? What was the predicted outcome? For example, we expect 95% availability with minimal waste. Who approved it? Did they override the recommendation, and how? Then, instead of hoping someone reviews performance later, the system schedules outcome checkpoints. Day 7, Day 14, Day 30. Compare predicted versus actual. If there's a big gap, you flag it for analysis. Was the model wrong? Did execution deviate, or did the world change? And that feedback has two effects. It improves the model because you learn where predictions drift. And it improves people because decision makers calibrate trust. They learn when to follow the system, when to challenge it, and what kinds of overrides actually help.
I love that you said calibrate trust. It's not blind faith in AI. It's learning where it's strong and where it's fragile. Lien, when you collapse strategy into shorter learning cycles, what changes for leadership teams?
It changes the entire cadence, and that's uncomfortable if you're used to long planning cycles. Many enterprises run on an annual strategy process, quarterly reviews, monthly operational updates. Information gets summarized and filtered at every layer. By the time outcomes reach the top, you're already far into the year. Outcome intelligence compresses that timeline. When decisions are instrumented and outcomes come back in weeks, strategy becomes iterative. Not react to every noise reactive, but responsive. You test strategic hypotheses and adjust before you've sunk massive resources into the wrong direction. In fast movement sectors across APAC, like fintech and e-commerce and advanced manufacturing, many of the winners don't treat strategy as a once-a-year thing. They treat it as continuous strategic learning. The decision layer is what makes that possible.
Maria, outcome measurement sounds great, but it also sounds like a governance nightmare if you can't trace anything. Does this raise the bar for governance?
It does, but in a good way. If you're going to attribute outcomes to decisions, you need to know exactly what data informed those decisions. If the outcome is poor, the first questions are, was the data wrong? Was the model wrong? or was execution wrong? Without lineage, you can't even start. This is why I say outcome intelligence elevates governance from compliance to strategy. If you have strong stewardship, definitions, quality controls, and traceability, you can actually do outcome intelligence confidently. If you don't, the organization won't trust the measurements, and then you're right back to instinct.
Jonas, I want your take here, because this gets philosophical fast. Measuring outcomes means defining what good means. That's not just technical, is it?
Exactly. The definition of success is an ethical choice. Good for whom? Over what time horizon? At what cost? A credit system optimized for repayment will behave very differently than one optimized for long-term financial health. You can approve loans that people can repay on paper, but that push them into long-term harm. If you only measure repayment, you'll call that a success. If you measure well-being, you might call it a failure. So the decision layer forces values into the open. And in Europe, this is moving from nice discussion to requirement. With newer AI regulation, you're expected to show that systems align with stated values and don't create harm. Outcome intelligence isn't just metrics. It's governance of what you choose to optimize.
Let me challenge you, though. Isn't there a point where ethics becomes so heavy that it slows everything down?
It slows things down if you handle ethics as one-off debates. That doesn't scale. The scalable approach is embedded frameworks. Principles and guardrails built into the decision system so you're not convening a committee every time. For example, you define constraints like, we will not optimize for a metric that creates discriminatory outcomes across protected categories. That becomes a rule in design similar to a budget constraint. When ethics is embedded, it speeds decisions up because people operate within known boundaries instead of waiting for approvals.
So ethics as acceleration through clarity, not ethics as endless review. Alright, let's make this practical. If someone listening is thinking, okay, I buy it, but where do I start? What do you tell them to do first? I want one implementation principle from each of you. Lien, your principle.
Start with a decision inventory. Before buying tools or launching programs, list the recurring decisions that actually drive performance. The ones made weekly or monthly that materially affect cost, revenue, risk, customer experience. For each decision, ask 3 basic questions: who makes it, what information they use, and whether the outcome is measured. Most organizations can't answer that across the board. The inventory becomes your roadmap, because it shows where the decision layer is missing and where improvement will pay off.
Maria.
Assign decision owners. Singular accountability for major decision categories. Not because you want to centralize power, but because you want to centralize learning. When the same person or team owns a decision category over time, they see patterns, they build judgment, they improve. If the responsibility rotates constantly or is spread across a vague committee, nobody accumulates learning, and outcomes don't improve. Continuity is everything.
Jonas.
Build outcome measurement for auditability from the beginning. Every significant decision should be reconstructible later. Not in theory, in practice. 6 months from now, someone may ask, why did you do this? A regulator, an auditor, or a customer who was harmed. You should be able to show the data used, the model output if there was one, the human judgment applied, the expected outcome, and the actual outcome. If you design for reconstructability upfront, compliance becomes straightforward. If you try to bolt it on later, it's painful and often impossible.
Kwame.
Design for decision completion, not decision support. Most analytic systems stop at informing the human. That's where the value leakage happens. Instead, ship insights with an action interface. Approve, reject, modify. Trigger implementation automatically. Schedule outcome measurement automatically. When you do that, decision throughput goes up and outcome data quality improves dramatically. That's how you get real learning.
Now, listeners might be thinking, this sounds expensive. New platforms, new architecture, new everything. Is that actually required?
Not at the start. The simplest decision layer is discipline tracking. A shared spreadsheet can do it: decision logged, expected outcome logged, 30 days later actual outcome logged. That's not glamorous, but it builds the habit. Technology helps you scale once you've proven the loop matters. But I've watched companies spend millions on fancy platforms and get nothing because they didn't have the organizational discipline to use them.
And honestly, many organizations already own the tools they need. They just haven't instrumented them around decisions. Before buying new tech, ask, can our existing systems capture decision points and outcomes? Often yes. It requires intentional design, not new contracts.
Governance can support that discipline too. If someone wants to buy an analytics platform, governance should ask a simple question: which decisions will it improve, and how will we prove the outcomes improved? If the answer is, it will give us better insights, that's not a business case. That's hope.
And vendors love selling capability without accountability. They'll say, our model predicts with 90% accuracy. The real question is, accuracy for what decision, under what conditions, and what outcome do you expect? Without decision context, accuracy is just a number.
Let's take advantage of this global panel for a minute. I want one regional pattern from each of you, something that might be local but offers a lesson globally. Lien, APAC.
Speed as a cultural advantage. In parts of Southeast Asia and China especially, decision velocity is treated as a competitive weapon. Organizations empower people closer to the action, escalation is fast, and they're willing to decide with imperfect information and adjust based on outcomes. For slower-moving organizations elsewhere, the lesson is that not every decision needs senior approval. Design the decision layer so authority is distributed appropriately and speed is a first-class requirement.
Maria, Latin America.
Relationship-driven intelligence. In many Latin American business settings, decisions are not purely analytical. Trust, context, stakeholder sentiment, relationships, this matters a lot. So the best decision layers I've seen don't pretend humans are robots. They capture qualitative input in a structured way. Not just numbers, but context. What are we hearing from partners? What's the market mood? What's happening politically? The global lesson is, don't over-rotate into quantitative purity. Some of the most valuable signals are human, and you can still systematize them.
Jonas, Europe.
Regulation as an innovation driver. GDPR was viewed as a burden at first, but the organizations that embraced it early built privacy by design, explainability, and strong audit trails. Now they can operate almost anywhere because they already meet high standards. The lesson is to anticipate regulation rather than react. Build the decision layer to be explainable and auditable from the start, because constraints aren't disappearing. They're spreading.
Kwame, Africa.
Leapfrogging. Many markets aren't held back by old infrastructure, so they build mobile-first, cloud-native decision systems from day one, and outcome measurement is built in because everything is digital. The lesson for established enterprises is, legacy can trap you. Sometimes the best move is a greenfield decision layer for a high-value decision category, rather than trying to retrofit intelligence into systems that were never designed to measure outcomes.
Alright, we're coming in for landing. This last part is our tactical edge. One action each that listeners can take this week, not this quarter, this week. Lien.
Make a decision inventory. List your top 20 recurring decisions. For each, write down the owner, the inputs, and whether the outcome is measured. You'll see the gaps immediately, and you'll know where to start.
Maria.
Pick one decision category and assign one accountable owner for outcomes. Not shared accountability, not a committee, one owner. Then watch what changes when learning has a home.
Jonas.
Take one significant decision from the last month and try to reconstruct it like an auditor would. Can you show what data was used, the rationale, the expected outcome, and the actual impact? If you can't, you just found your first auditability gap. Fix that pattern and systematize it.
Kwame.
Choose one analytic output your team produces, like a weekly report or model recommendation, and redesign the workflow so it ends in a decision, not a read. Add a simple approve, reject, or modify step, and schedule the outcome check automatically. Even a small pilot will show you the difference between support and completion.
Let's tie the whole thing together. The decision layer is what connects insight to action to measured outcome. It's where strategy meets execution, not as a slogan, but as a repeatable operating practice. Building it takes discipline, clear decision ownership, real outcome measurement, and a culture that treats learning as the goal, not as punishment. It takes governance that enables speed through trust, with quality and lineage that make decisions defensible. It takes ethical clarity about what outcomes you're optimizing for, and guardrails that keep you aligned with your values. And it takes design for completion, so decisions actually happen, implementation actually triggers, and outcomes actually come back into the system. Lien, Maria, Jonas, Kwame, thank you for bringing the global perspective today.
Thank you, Nakel. This was a good one.
Really enjoyed it. These conversations are overdue in a lot of companies.
Thanks for having us. Accountability is the theme, and it's only going to become more important.
My pleasure. And I hope people try the simplest version first. The habit changes everything.
Next week on the Intelligence Edge, Intelligence Debt, the hidden cost of delayed decisions. We'll put numbers to what it costs when insights come too late, and how fast organizations reduce decision latency without sacrificing quality. Until then, I'm Nakel Nikima. Make better decisions.